been watching my channel for a while, you probably realized something. I have had a lot of animals in my life. When you work in veterinary medicine long enough, you end up with way too many. It becomes a job hazard. I used to warn new employees about this all the time. And somehow they never really believe you until suddenly they have 3 cats, 2 dogs, foster kittens in their bathroom, and 1 temporary foster that never seems to leave, which is pretty much how my life turned out too. Over the years, I've shared my life with dozens of animals, especially if you count all the foster litters. And every single one of them had their own personality, their little quirks, their chaos, and of course the great stories. And honestly, I think that's why animals have meant so much to me. Some people are just wired to love them, and that is definitely me. We always had pets when I was growing up, and as a kid, I experienced that unconditional love that animals give so freely. They comfort you, they stay close to you, and somehow always know when you need them the most. And once you experience that kind of bond, it stays with you. My first job working with animals was actually pet sitting. Now, this was back in the early 1990s, and people then thought pet sitting was completely ridiculous. My friends and families would say, "Jane, there is no way someone is going to pay you to walk their dog and take care of it." Of course, it's a huge industry now, but at the time it was unusual. A few years later, I started working as a receptionist at the animal hospital, and somehow that job turned into 20 years in veterinary medicine. Over time, I worked at a general practice, emergency specialty medicine, and even became a hospital manager. Later on, I earned my certified veterinary practice management accreditation, and even trained and consulted with other practices. But the biggest thing those years gave me wasn't a title. It was perspective. I learned how deeply we as pet parents love and bond with our pets. And I saw how overwhelming things can become when our pets start getting older and things begin to change. People are suddenly trying to make decisions while they're stressed, exhausted, scared, emotionally drained. And many feel completely unprepared because the truth is, you don't know what you don't know until you're in it. Now, there's one client in particular that really stayed with me. I'll call her Betty. Betty was a huge animal lover, and she did a lot of rescue work, and over time we became friends. Her cat lived to be 21 years old, and I walked through her with all the changes that come with loving a geriatric pet. The caregiving, the changes at home, the emotional decisions, and eventually some really difficult moments too. She asked me to be there during one of the hardest days a pet parent can face. And I felt honored that she trusted me enough to ask, and a bit relieved because I was worried she thought she could go through that moment alone, because sometimes people do think they can handle that situation by themselves. But we all know that it hits it way harder than we expect. And sometimes people just need someone there beside them, reminding them they are doing the best they can out of love. That experience stayed with me for a long time, and it's part of what eventually inspired me to create Paws with Jane, because I realized pet parents don't just need information, they need support and understanding, reassurance, and sometimes someone just there so they don't feel alone. It's also why I share my funny stories about my animals. One of my favorite questions to ask pet parents was, "Tell me your favorite pet story." And almost every time their whole face would light up. They'd smile or they'd laugh. They might tear up a little bit. And then suddenly they're telling you this great story about some weird habit or chaos or funny little thing their pet did that made them so unique. Because those little moments really do become our big memories. If you enjoy stories about life with animals, caregiving, senior pets, and that bond that we share with them, I'd love for you to subscribe and be a part of our community. And if you'd like a place to capture your pet's memories and stories, I'll leave the link below for the Memories and Connections Journal, because every pet leaves a story in our hearts.